Hi, everyone. Welcome to IB Music at LSHS for 2020-2021. My name is Dr. Carrie Turner. If you haven't met me before, I'm the orchestra director here at LSHS, and this is my 9th year teaching IB Music. It's a really interesting course because IB doesn't really set aside a specific curriculum, and so at every school, every teacher teaches it differently. And it makes for quite an adventure because it actually gives us, the students, and myself a lot of freedom to explore things that are of our own particular interests and doesn't limit us to certain levels of repertoire or items. Group 6, which is for IB, the arts, has an aim to be sure that the students in music will enjoy a lifelong engagement with the arts, learn to have a critical ear with what they're listening to, also understand the dynamic and changing nature of the arts. And I think it does a very good job of kind of opening up the curiosity of all the musicians in the room. I've never seen anybody in IB music know it all. And there's always more for us to explore. So this has been really great. Just to quantify a little bit about the learning of 1 year of IB music versus what happens with a music degree. Basically, to be able to do some of the things that they're expecting you, it's rather like the equivalent of 4 semesters of music theory that a freshman, sophomore sequence music major would take. 4 semesters of aural skills, same thing, freshman, sophomore sequence, and also freshman, sophomore sequence of Western music history, a semester of world music, and then a smattering of Western Civ and art appreciation. It's a lot of material, and we don't have that much time. So I have to selectively pick and choose what we're going to dive into. Oftentimes, I will look at the interests of the students in our class and modify and bring to the table things that will hit on everybody's special areas. Or if it seems like maybe we have holes in our knowledge in our knowledge base, then I will go through and fill in those gaps. So as I mentioned before, we have a lot of flexibility with how we cover things. And so you're not going to come out of this with 4 semesters of music theory like under the bag, but you're going to have a bit of experience with kind of theory at all of those levels. You may not be completely fluent in it, and so on and so forth with these other topics. But it is a lot of material that typically we are asked to cover. For our purposes, for your quarterly and semester grades, this is the breakdown. So 60% of your grade is daily work and discussions. I really like to have active and lively discussions and participation. So those will be live Google Meets that we do, where we'll talk about some of the material that I've had you look at before we come together. I lead it a lot in the Socratic method. I rarely give extensive lectures. And then we'll have some assignments on that, some theory assignments, some listening assignments, just giving some feedback about what you're hearing and developing your vocabulary so that you can speak about music as a musician does. 20% of your grade is going to be unit assessments. There's 2 types of assessments that I do for each unit. One is music theory and listening and score analysis. And then the other one is your terminology and the Western music history, the world music, like any of the kind of culture and history pieces of that is what the second assessment is about. The musical links investigation and rehearsals and performance is actually the IB required portions that they use in their marking scheme to give you your final score from IB. Typically, it used to be that there were 3 of these. So you would have the musical links investigation, which is a research project. You would have performances that you would submit for assessment. And then also you would sit at the end of the semester for what they call the listening paper, which is a score analysis and listening analysis exam that you sit for 2 hours. They have waived that exam at the end of the year. So you only have the two components now, the musical link investigation and the rehearsals and performance. And as we work on various pieces towards those, I will be giving you scores on those so that you know, and I know that we're going through that process. The musical links investigation is a lot of fun. It's a comparison and contrast between two works from separate cultures and styles. They can be anything so long as they're not related. So you can do kalimba music and Japanese kurto music. You could do Brazilian jazz fusion with, I don't know, you want to do some flamenco from Spain. Doesn't matter. It's so long as they're completely separate cultures, completely separate styles. Then you're going to find at least two musical elements that you're going to then compare and contrast between them in the pieces. You have to give evidence like notated examples from the scores, so on and so forth. And it must be a minimum of 800 words in a media script format, webpage, blog, journal, article. Okay. This is something that we work on throughout the year. I give you a lot of guidance on it. Please don't feel like you're going to be just thrown out there to do it on your own. It really helps you. Rehearsals and performance, IB does require that every student in the course is also in an ensemble that is rehearsing a certain number of hours a semester. We do meet that requirement with all of our ensembles. I know all of you are enrolled in one of our ensembles at school. That is a requirement. And so those rehearsals that you are attending, whether they be virtual or in person, count towards that final piece. And then the performances that we record reflect the culminating experience of all of those rehearsals. Our students typically do very well when they turn in group performances from our ensembles at the high school. We get usually the highest markings that you can get. So I usually suggest that that's what we do. It is possible for you to turn in solo repertoire. Just know it has to be completely solo once you decide that you want to do that. And it can be a little daunting to fill the time requirement because you have to have a certain amount of minutes for that. I think the minimum this year is 13 minutes. If you want to go a different route, instead of doing the performances, you could do the creation portion, which is to actually create 3 original works. You would then get performances of those works and you would write a reflection statement on those works. I typically have my husband, who is a composer, work with you on those scores to be sure that they are, thoughtfully created and fitting of the instruments that you're writing for and, any other things that we need to consider with that. He's a really wonderful aid for that. Course supplies at book pickup. There will be 2 textbooks, a Mozart score, and a binder. And those are very important. We're going to be using them a lot. All of those materials will be used a lot. So just be forewarned to be on the lookout for that. You should have 4 things from me. Supplies you might want would be score marking highlighters, score marking pens, score marking pencils, a ruler, and access to a keyboard, meaning a piano keyboard. Just an app on your phone or a digital version on your Chromebook is fine. I even have apps on my phone that are cat pianos and it meows at you, whatever, it doesn't matter. You just need to kind of have an idea of how notes lay out on the keyboard to help you spell chords, look at intervals, deal with inversions. Sometimes you might have an odd scale that we're looking at and you want to be able to hear it. Okay, so that's why I would like you to have something like that. We do have an assessment fee, as always. It's $119 per class. Mr. Buxton will be coordinating that sometime with you in October. The year-long timeline here is going to take us through 3 portions of focus for each quarter. The MLI will always be included in that. Your performance will always be included in that. And then also Western music history will be included in all of that. World music is continually covered as we go, but we will just be touching on the indigenous music around the world as best as we can find it and represent it. Sometimes it can be difficult to find those recordings. And it's also difficult to track the history of how that music has formed. It just blows out into, a whole other class that we have to get into. So it is there for us every single semester as well. And again, there for us to explore as our curiosity requires. I do have a remind text message list, and this slide should be available to you, but the code is, I just got this. Oh yeah, it's at 35B48, and you in the to line put 81010. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at any point in time. You can also send me a text or call me on my cell. We're trying not to use the office phone too much because so many of us are recording and it's easier to silence our cell phones. So anyway, go ahead and use that if you feel so inclined. Thank you so much for being a part of IB Music this year. I'm really looking forward to engaging with you on this endeavor. It should be a really great time. And just let me know what is interesting to you, and we'll take a look at it.